Hey, what's up? This is Fred and welcome to The Shed. Today's video is 5 tricks popularized by the late great Eddie Van Halen. Before we get started, make sure to like the video and please subscribe to my channel. We're still a relatively new channel, so I really appreciate the support. Now, I know I've had a good bit of Van Halen content come out this week. Eddie's influence on my music cannot be overstated. I also know that some of you watching who are Color Fred fans or Taking Back Sunday fans may not be the biggest Van Halen fan. I actually remember Eddie Van Halen talking about Eric Clapton as his biggest influence when I was younger and thinking, man, I don't really see the connection between Eric Clapton and the music I love in Van Halen. I'm not seeing it. The truth is, those of us that started playing music when we were young, there's always that one person that influenced you, that made you pick up that instrument. That person tends to stay with you your whole life. In a strange way, it was pretty tough. So making these videos was kind of like how I processed it. So I just want to thank this little community that we're building for all your support. I initially wanted to call this video 5 tricks that Eddie invented, but we don't really know who the first person to do these things were. There's always a chance that a flamenco guitarist in southern Spain was already doing these things in the 1600s. But for popular music as we know it, Eddie revolutionized the guitar, took it to a whole other level. Of course, there was Hendrix, Clapton, Jimmy Page that came before him. He took it yet to another level, and Van Halen became the biggest rock band of the mid-80s, with virtually every guitarist on MTV imitating his style. As the guitarist Steve Vai posted this week, could you imagine if Eddie never showed up? This was the exact time that I started playing guitar, and these were the guitarists that I was trying to be like. So again, Eddie Van Halen, thank you so much for the inspiration. Now let's get to the list. The first technique I want to show you of Eddie's is definitely his most famous. It's two-hand tapping. Two-hand tapping, also known as finger tapping or just tapping, is when you take your picking hand up and you start to press notes on the fretboard with your other hand. When I first noticed Eddie Van Halen doing this, I didn't even play guitar at the time. My mom had an acoustic guitar that she would play, and I said, what is he doing putting his other hand up there? And she said, I don't know. That's how you play electric guitar. I don't know how to do that. And a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, I need to play electric guitar. When Eddie did it, he would actually bring his hand up, hold the neck between his thumb and these fingers, and tap on and off with his first finger. He would somehow maneuver his pick into his other fingers before he did it, but I didn't know that as a kid, so I actually kept the pick where it was, and I tap on and off with my middle finger. Once you get comfortable doing that with this hand, you can then add in another note. So say we went, and we'll hammer on that note, and then we hammer on this hand and pull off to the first note again. Hammer on. The world basically got to hear this technique for the first time in '78 when their first album came out on the track Eruption. With Eddie in those early years, it was always about the speed. So the next thing I want to talk about is his crazy fast tremolo picking, which is basically when you try to play one note many times as fast as you can. And for me, I would just normally try to play the way that I normally pick a note and just play it as fast as I could. But Eddie had this sort of hyper speed thing that he used to do where he would normally pick like this. He would turn his hand like this and start to do this sort of motion, and he somehow was able to control it and hit the string. I can't do it. I'm just gonna tell you right now. But the way he did it was incredible. Check this out. I just can't get the stability to do it. Eddie's brother, Alex Van Halen, always told this story that, he would go out on a Friday night, and when he left to go out Eddie would be sitting on the edge of his bed practicing. When he got back late at night, Eddie would still be sitting there, still practicing. So I think the answer is Eddie just practiced way more than the rest of us, and that's how he did it. Eddie also ushered in a new era of super high gain amplifiers. In the 70s, they didn't have the amps that they have nowadays, so the only way to get that amount of gain was to crank the amp ridiculously loud. And you always hear stories about how the sound guy would make Eddie turn his amp so that it faced the back of the stage because it would just crush the audience if it was facing them. That high gain allowed him to revolutionize a lot of things with harmonics and basically get more notes and tones out of the guitar than had ever been done before. One of my favorite harmonic tricks neither me nor my guitar teacher could figure out until we saw it on video in the mid-80s. You hear it right after the solo of Somebody Get Me a Doctor off Van Halen 2. And you hear this series of many harmonics. So on the guitar you have fretted notes when you hold down a string. You have open notes when you're not holding down a string. And then we have harmonics, which is when you touch the string and play and you let off. It's this weird overtone that happens, and it only happens on a few places on the string. For example, the 12th fret is the exact halfway mark of this string. This distance is equal to this distance. This is the halfway point. So when you hold on any string at the halfway point and play, instead of hearing this, you hear an octave higher. If you hold here, you get 2 octaves higher at the 5th fret. But if you get super high gain, you can get frets all the way down. And you can get all kinds of tones that you couldn't get without that amount of gain. So this trick he would get by pulling off on this hand, let's say like this sort of thing. Right now we're not doing anything with the picking hand. What he would do is drag his hand here, and with enough gain you start to get all kinds of harmonics. But Eddie would be able to work it into songs in the coolest places. The next trick I want to show you is ridiculously easy. It can be played by any beginner, but it's also the first note played by a guitar on the first Van Halen album. When you first hear Running with the Devil, you hear that siren noise, and then you hear the bass. Dun, dun, dun. And then you hear this thing that sounds like a piano, but it's actually Eddie just doing this. There's a space between the bridge and the end of the string. And you'll hear that. Also, you can do it up here. He also used that on OU812 on the song Feels So Good. Now, why am I showing you that easy trick? Well, one, it's fun. And two, it kind of shows you Ed's relationship with the guitar. He would use every little part of it to make a different noise. He exhausted every possibility that you could get out of a guitar. There were springs in the back for his whammy bar. He would hit those with delay on. He would just get so many noises and you couldn't figure out what the heck he was doing. Half the time it was like a kid having fun doing skateboard tricks, and the rest of the time it was just a musical genius practicing his art. The last thing I wanted to show you is a lower gain harmonic trick, and it's the idea that when you play that 12th fret harmonic, you can also hammer on right on the fret and get a bit of a harmonic. You hear that? So what Ed figured out is that if you play, say, an E chord, you could go 12 frets up from each of those. So you would go 12 where there's open. Where there's a 2nd fret, you would go 14, 14. And when there's a 1st fret, you would go 13. So it sort of had this sound. I first noticed this on the 2nd Van Halen album on the acoustic song Spanish Fly. And also on the intro to Beautiful Girls, which was such a beautiful sound they got. Here it is used on the song AFI Naturally Wired. Alright guys, so that's my 5 favorite tricks by my guitar hero, Mr. Eddie Van Halen. I want to thank him again for the inspiration. Thanks for watching all my videos. Please subscribe and don't forget to click the notification bell so you find out when I post a new video. I'm going to leave you musicians with one last piece of advice.
Eddie Van Halen here, telling you, keep playing, man. Gotta keep playing. It's the only thing there is. Music, man. Keep playing. All right? I'm gonna come looking for you if you don't.